I was riveted by the testimony of the four officers. Riveted's not the first word. I was furious as they began to recount their story. Like, just furious, okay? Not that it's not, we had heard these accounts, right? But to have all of them there together, all four, and it was like they each had their own individual horrific story. Words like torture, you know, I know you heard it too, were being tossed around. But it was like they were, beautiful is the wrong word, but it was like a beautiful concert. They were all telling the same thing, but they weren't all side by side. What they said was disgusting. Trying to gouge out one of their eyes. Officer Dunn had never been called the N-word so much, and started by that one lady in the pink hat, white woman who called him out his name and led the others. I mean, they're lucky to be alive, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, look, they all, look, one was being crushed. Officer Dunn, of course, he's been very outspoken. You can still hear the emotions, even though it was more than 6 months ago. And I really pray that they go through their mental therapy themselves, because that's traumatic. You heard Dunn talking about being electrocuted and having to scream and say he's got kids. And you see the body camera footage of the of the tourists who were allowed in, as President Trump said before. It's sad that we've gotten to this point in our country. I think that the most important part, though, is that, once again, what I brought up yesterday, Sharon, and I want you to comment on this, because we want to get to Officer Dunn and what he said about what he was called, is the response, once again, from the other side. We know what happened on January 6th. We know it was an insurrection. They started using the word terrorists. You heard them use that word a lot, throw that word out there a lot, too. But to hear McConnell basically said they're too busy to listen to the testimony of these men who protect them and did a great job of protecting that house, America's house, the people's house, on that particular day. You don't have time to listen to that testimony, to try and figure out what's going on. I don't care how you feel about Nancy Pelosi and all that type of stuff. You had an opportunity to do something about it when they wanted to have a joint hearing. You chose not to vote for it. So Nancy Pelosi went on and said, you know what, we're going to get to the bottom of this. But once again, it brings me back to what I asked yesterday, Sharon. What is going to come out of it? And that is just, it's a lot of information, but what's going to happen? We're just going to know something, and there's nothing that's going to be done about it. And that is even more sad than anything else that's going on.
Well, you have, I felt positive in one way yesterday, okay? For the first time in a long time. I felt proud to know that this is still, for all of her troubles, for all of her garbage that's left to be taken out, it's still America. And the reason I felt like that for the first time in a long time is because Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, they were working in concert with these Democrats that they don't have anything else in common with, nothing else in common with. And they kept saying the same thing. We vow, we're not going to stop. We're not going to be bullied. We're going to go there. And so there was other things that stuck out to me. Adam Kinzinger, the other Republican, along with Liz Cheney on this committee, said, I mean, he's called up, right? He at one time was active duty. And during the summer of unrest, this racial awakening for a portion of the country that didn't seem to understand that racism was, you know, didn't just exist, but it permeated America. And he said, as he was out there, protests, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, justice, not once, not once. He didn't like some of what he saw, destruction of property, on and on. Not once did he say he felt democracy was being threatened in this country. Black Lives Matter, Antifa. Not at all. He did not feel that at all. And I was proud that he uttered it. Because as you know, when a white man says that, okay, tells what we already know to be the truth here, it can be quite powerful. But then when Officer Dunn talked about what he wants to happen, Mike, okay, he said when there's a hitman, the hitman goes to jail when he kills someone. But so does the person who hired him, okay? We all know what he's talking about there. We all know who, okay? We know that. And the other moment, and I hope we get to play that this morning, because Officer Fanon, you don't want to mess with him, okay? And he's angry. No. And he may even have an anger issue. Wouldn't you? The PTSD, okay? They told me he had a heart attack. He was unconscious for how many minutes? Okay? Brain trauma, all kinds of stuff he went through. Right. He thought this was it, begging for his life. I have kids, 4 daughters, I believe he has. And when he slammed his fist on that table and called them all out, disgraceful. The way you treat, disgraceful. It woke me up. You saw the people behind him like flinch. He cursed. God bless him. Every bit of it was important to enter into the record.
It is, and I'm happy that they got it off their chest, and I'm also happy that I think it may have been Fanon that actually spoke out. No, it may have been Dunn who spoke out and said, the fact that Kissinger and Cheney are on this panel, people calling them heroes. They're not heroes. They're doing their duty. That's what I'm talking about. That's their duty. That's their job to figure out what happened in this country. Not what happened to one side. It wasn't like they were attacking the Democrats. Now, sure, they hated the Democrats, the Trump supporters who came there that day, but they were attacking democracy. They were attacking this country, the sanctity of this country. And Republicans are just sitting back, closing a blind eye, knowing what they said. They came out early and said something about it. But now, because their guy has come out and said, hey, you know what? If you speak out against this, you might lose your job. You're going to lose your constituents. We're going to take this away. We're not going to endorse you. Now they're running scared for the sake of one man over this entire country. And that, my friends, is what is the saddest part about all of this. Once again, they're not heroes. They were doing their jobs. And I just wish that the rest of the politicians on all sides, both sides, would just do their jobs to figure out what went wrong on that particular day, who was responsible, and whoever is responsible for something like that, they have to pay for it. And if not, then what's going to happen when it happens again? Because it will happen again. If you let him get away with it once, it's going to happen again. And they've already talked about the threats of this happening. Or what? Come on. We have got to do better.
Look,
they've got to do better.
What you're referring to with Cheney and Kissinger is a bare minimum standard. I am proud that they are doing a bare minimum standard as they do their job. We're talking about leadership here, a basic threshold, right? And by the way, it's not your job. It's on loan to you, not their job. Liz Cheney doesn't get that job for life, and neither does he. Neither does anyone there. They're supposed to be our jobs, and we entrust them to a select few, and every couple of years they have to go and ask our permission again. So you're right. This is what America's been reduced to, a bare minimum standard. And sadly, only two Republicans are meeting it on that day. It is
and they're
disgraceful.
Being
like
Fanon
said, it's disgraceful. I loved how he pounded his feet. I loved that energy anyway. Okay, it got me fired up. And I wanted more. I wanted them to tell it. Oh, baby, if you're going to tell it all. Okay?